let the minutes show that 4 board members are present with Kyle Art absent. Next is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make it.
First by Stacy, discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Heather. All in favor? All right, motion passes 4-0. Next is the informational items. First, we're going to have the spotlight. Is the middle school band ready? I know we kind of caught y'all off guard. You ready? Okay, so for our listening pleasure is the middle school band.
So these are, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm excited to introduce you to some of our 5th graders. These are our pre-band students actually. So they're not playing typical wind instruments that you might find in an orchestra or a concert band. This year they have been playing a wide variety of instruments from buckets to mallet instruments to tone chimes to recorders, and next up is ukuleles. So we try to give them a wide variety of experiences in the music room so they can kind of figure out what they like. And next year we'll start on traditional band instruments in 6th grade, meaning like flute, clarinet, trombone, things like that. So these guys have worked really hard these past few weeks. We've only been playing recorder since the start of the new semester, so it's been about 3 weeks and every other day. And they're going to perform some songs that they're preparing for their spring concert, which I'd like to invite everyone to. It is on April the 7th, and that is a concert that is going to be shared by every band student in our district from grades 5 through grades 12. It'll be a great evening of music starting at 7 o'clock in the high school gym, because we're expecting a large crowd. So these are just a few highlights from some of the songs we're going to play at that performance. We wanted to share with you what's been going on in the music. All right? Here we go. And these are just a snippet of our friends that could join us tonight. So we have several others, but I want to thank the parents before we get started for bringing their kiddos out tonight. I know everybody's super busy as the lovely spring weather has come about and busy time of year. So thank you parents for bringing your kids tonight. Thank you students for being here tonight and performing for us. We hope you enjoy. I'm not going to introduce each song. We'll just run right through and you can give them some love at the end. Okay? Here we go. Technical difficulties, it's all right. Let's try that one more time. All right, we'll just do it right without the pen. All right. Sorry, I didn't play it before. I was just assuming that it was on. Do it. Okay, we're going to do it without the piano. Here we go. All right. I'm not going to play somebody else's instrument. I was going to say I'll play along with them, but I didn't know. So we'll do it this way. Okay, you ready? This is our first time doing it without the accompaniment. So here we go. You ready, everybody? strings dangling off the recorders if you're paying attention. Those little strings are because we do a little program called Recorder Karate. So every belt that they play, they have to do a written assignment where they're identifying notes and rhythms, and then they also have to do a performance of that song, and they earn a different color belt for each song that they do. So all of these guys have earned all of the belts that we're going to play for you tonight, but our next one is our orange belt. If you know anything about karate, it's white, yellow. Now we're on orange. We hope that you like this one. This has a variety of names, by the way. I might have an extra pixie stick for somebody who can tell me the name of this tune, okay? Awesome. In our belts, we call it Merrily We Roll Along, but we talked about how sometimes different melodies have different tunes, same tune, but different names. So that one could also be Mary Had a Little Lamb. All right, very nice. Good job, buddy. All right. Back Tuesday, and we talked a little bit about Mardi Gras and how this song fits in with that genre. And this is when the Saints go marching in. All right. our grand finale for tonight.
We hope you enjoyed your little star.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next spotlight report, which is Wake Up Walton, so Ms. Schutzman.
Hello, thank you for letting me bug you.
You're never bugging.
I want to apologize that it's me instead of a student tonight. I normally like to have, I put this on the agenda because I like to have the student come and address the board, but my students who are the most involved in this are all away at school-sponsored things, SCCLA convention and something with NKU, and so it's just little old me here tonight. This year is our 14th year, and it's my last year, so I hope that, I know I can count on your support again this year. We are getting some new senior citizens. We've lost a few along the way, since last year even. And that's just how this works. But we are desperately in need of teams. We like to brag about how this is a community-wide project, which involves students, teachers, administrators, board personnel, and board members, along with businesses in our community. And I'll give a shout out to Ryan Burkowski. His team is the first to have signed up this year.
I didn't know that.
So far the only. But you've got some really eager kids out there. So our event is held at May 7th this year, Saturday morning. We'll meet in the Commons like we have, but not a whole lot will change. Except, I'm hoping this is a very successful year since it's my last. So it's kind of, this project is of course near and dear to my heart, and probably the thing I will miss most about this school district. So do you guys have any questions for me? I did put a team sign up and a flyer at you, at your places, but I have more if anybody would like some, or if you have any questions.
No questions, just thank you for your dedication to this program.
I love it. It's the most rewarding thing. We are searching for another teacher to take this on.
I would just like to invite you back next year. You can always come and be a team.
I can come and drive my
You
truck
can
around.
come and still be the boss lady in the truck,
do
yeah.
now.
You don't have to leave forever.
I'd be willing to come and volunteer. I'm not, You have to be in the school to coordinate it.
Right.
I cannot continue to coordinate it.
No, I understand.
And you have to know the kids, and, you know, as a few years go by, I won't know the kids anymore, so. Anyway, David, did you have a question?
I just.
Oh, well, I'll come over there for that. Thank you. You gonna get some teams together again?
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. All right, that's all I had. If you guys don't have any questions.
I do have one thing.
Yeah.
Mrs. Shearsman, about a year ago, we started giving just a token of gratitude and recognition to special individuals and groups in this community. The first group, we gave this recognition to several city council members who made an extraordinary contribution to our district. We've given this recognition to members of the WAVE Board of Directors who have worked tirelessly for decades to support our students and staff. So while we have you here this evening, I wanted to give you, we call this our Tradition of Excellence Award. This is one of my favorite events this year, and it's just one example of how special this district and this community is. And you have played a tremendous part in that. So we'd just like to give this to you this evening in recognition of your efforts.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I have to go to a baby shower.
It's okay, you can go. You're good.
Thanks.
Okay, for tonight's meeting, we have some things going on, so we are going to skip over the principals' reports. Everybody had time to read those, correct? Any questions for any of the principals or Rob about attendance? Any of those reports? Anybody? No? Nothing for Jeremy either, under construction, Rob?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
Got to award the traveling trophy.
Oh, okay, you should award that.
Different.
You can do
It
that.
goes to the high school this month.
First for a mid-year win. We claim month 10, but we will take a mid-season win too.
There you go.
Quite unexpected.
Last time the high school got it, it never reappeared after David Sullivan left. So,
I cannot speak to that.
yeah, so I don't know what happens, but whenever the high school gets it, it never reappears, so. Good job, high school. All right, next moving into the F, Walton Intermediate School Schematic Design Development Presentation. Emmett?
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back. You have a booklet that really has the same information that's on the screen.
Yeah, they're the same.
Okay.
There are two copies more than
I just want to make sure they weren't.
One's bound, one's stapled.
Okay, I just want to make sure that one wasn't A and one wasn't B.
One's
so-
kind of still proof, the other
Okay.
one's maybe more right on.
Okay, got it.
What we have for your consideration tonight is a very early schematic design. And this is for the 325 student capacity, two-grade building down at Complex. And if you look at the first slide, this is just the, yes, this one right here. You can see this is the, this is the complex as you know it. Here's the stadium. Here's the baseball, softball, all up in this area. So as you drive in, you're coming in this area here, and here's the tennis over in here. So the new intermediate school will be placed in the back, kind of where the big fields are when you first come in. It's in the back part of that. We are leaving a little bit of room behind it for some expansion, and a little bit of room to the side of it for some expansion. And we're still maintaining the whole play field, or the whole grass play field out in the front. It's important to try to separate your bus and light vehicular traffic, so we try to do that and try to create a couple different bus loops. The one good thing about this site is, drop-offs, a lot of times we're stacking people out on state highways and all that. This is not a consideration here, so you've got plenty of stack-up space to get in and get around the complex. We wanted to make it to where we had these expandable fingers We put all the ancillary and public elements in the front so it could be zoned separately. And we wanted a bus loop that had a nice canopy to receive people, some visitor parking that was very accessible, a dock that was accessible, and a nice bit drop-off type area. So that really is the site plan. In your attachment shows a little bit more. Now, one thing that's also a little unusual is this needs a wastewater treatment plant. And that is what we've already started some design and discussions with GRW. It'll say owner architect, but architect and engineer are really interchangeable. So you're going to have a contract, and I'm helping put that together with them. And they're actually doing the design of the yellow treatment plant, and we're trying to get that permitted by the summer. So that's the goal there. And they're
So again, is this back by the fire pit? Where does it go to the existing playfield? Does it go to where the dumpster is, or where the parking lot is? I'm just trying to get a visual of the complex where this is. Like where the new bus loop is going.
It's gonna be one soccer field that they practice on.
yeah, it kind of goes through the middle of
So
the
that's
big
the
soccer
fire
field that's there now.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It takes a pretty good portion. Like I said, I wanted to keep some expansion behind it. I just felt if we squished it against the hill, we might regret that move because 325 is not a huge building and it needs to have that kind of expansion.
So is this gonna be the new entrance, and this is the only entrance that everyone will have to come in and go to the right, even to get to the football field? Or are we keeping the existing entrance?
No, you can still go over to the stadium and stuff.
Okay,
This is
so I
just-
didn't-
This is just the school day traffic.
Okay, well, the yellow arrows in the way that the parking lot is designed, that's already the parking lot, right?
Yeah, so we're not changing the gray on the left side at all.
Right,
We're
so-
just showing how the
So we can
traffic-
still come in off the main
Go
road
left.
by the Family Dollar and all that stuff. Okay.
Next slide, please. This shows the organization of it, and you can stop right there. So this is the back half, and what we wanted to do is create this common corridor that came through, and then we would do these different fingers that would be for your 4 and 5 grade. Each finger would have classrooms. We have 13 classrooms, and that's how we calculate our capacity. Is 13 times 25 is 325. So that's what we do. Each finger would also have resource classrooms, its own dedicated bathrooms. We would actually have some mechanical spaces as well. We have an FMB room in between. We have staff workrooms up in this area as well. Now, the new complexity in our world is we have to do a tornado shelter as far as all these projects. They have to withstand this 200-mile-an-hour wind. So it's pretty robust, and it has to have dedicated bathroom facilities. And the whole idea is if there's a tornado event, the kiddos can stay in there and live autonomously for 3-4 hours and have things to drink, they go to the bathroom. It has to have its own internal diesel generator. So these are going to be almost bunkers in themselves. What we do is we try to make them these two areas, because that's kind of where everyone's probably going to be anyway. And we have rolling shutters over the doors, and we kind of make these a different type, a very robust, different type of construction. So anyways, in the front, we're just going to get back to the classrooms. I figure that's probably moving the least people on your average moment of any average day. So that's, understand that those are kind of unique. Now the good thing is we're building enough of it, if we start adding on, we probably would be able to still use some of that equity that you put in for the first phase. Because things like the emergency generators, bathrooms, all that equity doesn't have to be rebuilt. As we go down this way, we start getting into some electives. We have some mechanical room. We have art in this area here, and the cafeteria is out on the end. So we get a lot of nice light. And I wanted to build everything where we can expand it. The cafeteria can be expanded. The kitchen can be expanded. Etc. And we can even come out here and expand out to the end or up towards the back hillside. So I just want to kind of give us a million options because we never know what things are going to lead to. If we could then drag this up just a little bit more, please. Perfect. Thank you. So this is then the gym area here. This is a high school court gym. And then we have seating on either side. This gym, as we currently have it drawn, is slightly larger than your current one now. By a little bit in each direction. We wanted to build it where we could have some future expansion, maybe have if you ever need, you can always do kind of like a student section on the end, that could be kind of annoying. So that's kind of a neat feature if you can ever pull that off. So we wanted to kind of keep that open as an option. And then the library is a much different space than it used to be, so that's going to be kind of a creative, steady kind of space. I mean, I have to use currently Department of Ed vocabulary, so library can be a lot of different things, and it's going to be a lot of different meetings to figure out what all these different pieces are. And I had 2 aunts at elementary school librarians, and it's totally different than what it was back when I was there. So we then put the music is kind of a neat opportunity to kind of be efficient with your space, because a stage and a gym is not something that really gets a lot of use. So what we're trying to do now is we use a music room on the stage, and then we kind of use that as a shared space. It's kind of an efficient way of using it. If you really run the numbers, it's kind of staggering. We're probably $400 a square foot today. So if you figure a music room is 1,000 square feet, 800 square feet, you're $350,000 to $400,000. So that's a lot of equity to not use it all the time, and that's why we want to kind of make it stage and music all the same effort. The front office up in this area kind of brought off. We have a nice canopy. We're coming out around the bus loop, et cetera. We have options, and that's what I was saying. Like the library, we might have like a little maker space, and this is kind of a design exercise in itself on how we do it. We want to have good zoning so we can lock down the academic wings. If we ever open this up for a night function, you could really do the gym kind of autonomously, and then by just locking these back set of doors and letting people in. So we want to kind of have some options as far as how we would actually zone it. We are trying to diligently hold at 50,000 square feet. That's one of the beautiful things about the computer is you kind of design it and you kind of start snipping and really kind of keep an accurate live number for what your square footage is. Because we kind of been opening some bids recently, and I feel a good placeholder for a budget right now is about 400 square foot. So I really have to hold that 50,000 at all costs at this point. So this is a very early 2 miles of the air look. We haven't really got into structural systems. We've had some great conversations with Jeremy on maybe what the mechanical systems might be. But we're still looking at very big global pictures, just kind of getting a rough square footage idea and how it would lay out. The one thing that is a little bigger than it would be is the gym. I think would really be poor planning to put a high school court. And it's only 10 feet bigger in each direction in elementary. So, but I think that's a real good. Now, as far as the outside and even the inside, like I said, this is schematic design. We got to really go into some exercises to learn what each individual classroom looks like, etc. The outside, we did several different studies. I'm going to show you the one that I like the best. Is it now? But you as a board, if we advance this, then we'll be back to you for design development, working drawings. You'll still have multiple more approvals, and I'm willing to come for workshops, as many presentations, even when you don't need approvals, to kind of go through the process. But there's a lot of work to get all the elevations kind of tidied up. Any questions before we?
I got one.
Yes, ma'am.
So this partition between the gym and the music room, is it soundproof?
Yes, we just did one over at Steeplechase. It works out really well. It has a whiteboard finish on the music room side, and then it's kind of acoustics on the gym side.
So you can't hear balls bouncing from the gym?
It's not too bad.
Kickballs going?
It's pretty good, because we actually have a full stage curtain, so you draw the curtain, and then you close this big 4-inch panel. Now, the downside is, it's kind of it's probably, I call the custodian or maintenance guy to have it deployed, so you can't really have it. Some things are mutually exclusive, so when we get these high NRC panels, it's a little more than just your average person wanting to operate it. So, and I'll be honest, when I've been to Steeplechase, it's been closed most of the time, but that's kind of the idea, is to use the stage for something else and then kind of convert it to a stage when you need it. And typically, the music program is who does the presentation. If you're going to have a show or something like what you did here tonight, that's usually through the music department anyway. And what I like about it is they actually set up, and it's familiar territory. All you do is just open the door, and they're set up. There are marks on the floor. Everything are the same as the way it's all been. So, but to answer your question, it's pretty quiet. It just needs a lot of
Yeah, because I'm just
Set up
thinking
time.
of music class going on at the same time as gym class during the day, how?
I didn't have any complaints, and I talked to a young lady that's a music teacher several times going through the projector issue. She's never mentioned any problems with the noise. And that she's doing a recorder that's pretty piercing on noise, so.
You said that's at Steeplechase?
Yes, ma'am. I'll ask, before we go out there next time, I'm not there in the meetings. Right at the street. Lisa's very cooperative with everyone, so I'll look at it again or look at it. Jerry trying to go out and shoot some baskets or something.
Any questions on this so far?
Okay, great. Next slide, please. This is kind of the first, and we did a lot of them, and we had some where we had like kind of a slope gym, we had some we had a flat gym. One thing I really like is having a canopy along the whole front of something that kind of comes out to the sea, because I think getting off the bus and not having something, it can be kind of problematic. The big thing we want to do is we want to be kind of cost effective. So I wanted to kind of work with the same architectural language you have on your campus right now, which is the brick and the vertical lines. This is curved, as you remember. We saw the floor plans are some of the same language. We're taking all the commons that you currently have and some of the other spaces that we've created. So this is kind of the start on what the outside would actually look like, but a common brick that would match what you started so far would be our direction. This one matches more this campus than the Porter Road campus, which I think is probably where you would want to go, but to be determined. It's a schematic, which just kind of gives us a roadmap for kind of price point and hiding mechanical devices and where we can get things and so forth.
Any questions on the front or rear?
So as an overall time frame, the big thing that we have to do is we have to be very diligent on the square footage. I have to monitor the price and what the bid environment's doing. So we'll be talking to a lot of contractors on a monthly basis to see how things develop. I'll make sure all our consultants kind of keep giving me status, budgets, mechanical engineers and so forth as we kind of march through it. And really pursue getting this water treatment plant permitted this summer. And then the build on a project like this, I would say, I kind of like the market to determine that. That's one of the things that we'll pursue. The exact time frame on the actual build, but I want to pull some contractors. The good thing about this project, I think makes it very desirable, is one, I know things are kind of expensive now. I don't see them coming down. Rates are probably the lowest in a very, very long time. I think they're kind of going, that's kind of scary. So that's a desirable thing. And the fact that this is a building that's not attached to your current building makes it super desirable from the environment. So if a contractor has a choice of a rush summer project somewhere or working around the current building, that's what makes this a very desirable project, because it's not, it is driven by a bus routine. Yes, you have a complex that's used in big, work around football games and work around daily practices. It's not like you're working around an active cafeteria. So it's a pretty desirable project. I think the market responds.
Do you think that if it's needed, traffic becomes a problem, you think that the 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out of the complex? So a lot of cars in there.
We could look at expanding the main drive-in or even the drive.
It becomes a problem.
I
Getting
don't.
them held up on that road will be dangerous.
Let's do it. Kate, could you go back to the first slide, please? There.
That one, yes.
One of the things we talked about with traffic patterns is if parents are going around the back of the building to drop off, how many cars potentially could line up around the back of the building, that long loop, going all the way out Walton right away to the main road? And there's a lot of space there. Kevin, Jeremy, and I went to Burlington earlier, it was this month, right? And met with Judge Moore, and some county engineers about this topic. And they were confident that given an enrollment of 325, that the current road could handle that traffic. But again,
Would you put a light out there?
we didn't discuss a light. I don't know that there would be enough traffic to merit that, but that'd be a county decision.
Unfortunately, that's one of those things that usually comes after there's a problem, like the one over there was 4 years.
You might be able to flash or reduce, you can't put it on anybody else's
Yeah.
property. But we can,
Cross the
for sure,
road.
tell them.
Can we maybe get the flash to the 25 or something there, because it comes on certain hours?
I guess the traffic is a little bit of my concern on this too, and here's why. So is the farthest one to the left, is that Rice Auto Body, that little brown square?
No, it's a field house.
That's the field house. Okay, so is this, what's this?
This road is all the way down here.
Oh, so this is our main entrance.
Yes.
Okay, I thought we were doing a new entrance. That's where I was so confused before.
No, it's all the same driveway. We're just
So
putting-
if we are getting out at approximately 3:35-ish, like the other school, you've got high schoolers coming in at approximately 3:15, 3:30. So if the high schoolers come in, do they have to be forced right? Because it doesn't look like they can go left because it looks like the traffic's coming.
Those yellow arrows are just to indicate how traffic patterns are gonna work for the school.
Right, so
So-
what about the teenagers?
You'll still be able to turn left. I mean, in theory, you could turn left and go park over by the baseball field and walk up to the front door if you wanted to. This just kind of show how traffic's gonna flow. So the pickup loop, if you get in that, it's gonna go to the right around the back of the building, like back where the dumpster, somebody asked about the dumpster before, like where it sits right now, and you'll come back in there. But yeah, there'll be traffic coming both ways.
I would just be concerned about,
There's got to watch for a big bus.
yeah, like that would be my concern, is the high schoolers coming in and not getting stuck in that and then,
These buses will be moving, I mean, they really, the bus traffic that comes through, we're going here, this will all be 2-lane. And it's the width of the highway, so it's not going to be different than passing on any road.
the yellow arrows had me confused. I thought like this is the way you have to go regardless.
No, those aren't gonna be like painted. They'll be painted on, probably on the, kind of the paint section or whatever color that is, for that traffic. But yeah, the
But the
other.
football players, the
existing
baseball
stuff,
players
you'll
don't have to
be
go
able
that way
however you
into the
want to go.
mix.
Yeah.
So they can actually just go straight in.
Okay, like
I don't know
normal.
what they need.
Okay. Any other
So
questions?
if traffic becomes a problem, who addresses that? You guys?
I think it depends on where the problem lies. If it's on, on this schematic, that's our issue. If it's out on the main road, we'll have to work with the county on that. You mentioned a caution light or a stoplight or something like that. We'll have to work in conjunction with the county on that.
So in theory, all the kids that are going over there like right now for practice out there, I think all their practices start before this building would be empty, potentially. So those kids, practice starts at 3:30 or whatever right now for track.
Well, I thought the bus leaves at 3:15 from here, the athletic bus.
Well, the drivers.
Well, yeah, I get it,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, if the bus doesn't leave
I'm
at
a-
3:15, then you know the drivers don't have to be there at 3. I'm just saying, I think it's like,
I think you, but I think it's one of those things that we won't really know until we're live over there and see how it is.
When we have loaded this thing up with buses, you will not ever see that kind of bus traffic over there for 325 students. It's a pretty light occupancy, and then a lot of that comes from Porter Road already, so it'll kind of free that up a little bit as well. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of staff up right here, coming down through there.
so since we're out purchasing any new buses, will the buses go from one to the next? Or how will we split, like,
I've discussed different options with Chris, but that's to be determined. We We've not made those decisions yet.
We've talked about like, maybe 3 or 4 bus, kind of like the athletic bus runs over, maybe they pick up a group of kids taking the elementary school and they all get on the same bus together.
The school only has 13 classrooms. So when you think of staff parking and all that, it's not going to be a huge burden on them.
We probably have 100 of them get picked up, by parents out of the 300 and whatever, so. Shouldn't.
How many cars are in this hour loop? What does it hold?
Ooh,
Like down in the red.
yeah, that's 10. Let's say 5, like that's 500. So that's probably 750 for. I'm gonna guess 75. Easy. So end to end, like there are parents stacking up around here. I mean, I can calculate it, but I think you could easily, whatever's showing up, I think you could easily get them between here and where they need to be. I don't see them ever blocking that intersection. That's a massive amount of.
So you know how in the high school, they have to wait for their kid comes to find them? Are we gonna have it where it's 2, like where somebody can get out, their kid's there, and they have to wait until the car in front of them, their kid gets picked up in that car? We just kind of sit there and stand still for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I might need to start I'm getting out of my lane a little bit. I might need a principal
Well,
here
we
to see
don't want
what.
kids crossing in front of other, like another line of cars.
I just know how it backs up out there in the high school. I mean, these are just parent concerns that this is a problem.
I've had some experience dealing with a system where parents have a tag in the car. When somebody pulls up to about 5 different slots on that back road, there's somebody with a radio giving numbers and tags, and then they release the kids out the back door, get in the cars, and they move. And it moves pretty fast.
There's a system now where it can scan it and implement.
Yeah.
County has it, so as your car comes over the tag, it scans it, and it tells that kid to come on out. It's pretty.
Mr. Hargan, did you do numbers when you in elementary school?
Yeah, but it wasn't very
Did
We
technical.
had to bring in the tab with us still.
It was all paper, pencil, and
Yeah.
it took a while
Yeah.
to do it that way.
Boone County does radios with a number tag in the front windshield. That's how I pick up my kid. It works pretty well for them. I mean, they got 2 people outside making radios, sending kids out.
Initially, that back, Kate, can you scroll down a little bit? Go. Thank you. A little bit more. There you go. Where it says new parent loop, initially that loop didn't go that deep. It was closer to the building. And if the building ever expanded, you would have to move that loop anyway. So we went ahead and moved the loop a little bit closer to the sewer treatment plant for 2 reasons. Number one, if you add on to the building one day, you don't have to move the loop. The second thing is you can fit more cars in that loop and keep them off the road. So we're trying to make decisions at this point that'll prevent any issues with traffic or pickups. But there are some other issues, some other things that we'll have to address at a later date. For example, what's the mechanics of pickup and drop off? All right, thank you, Evan.
Sorry. Okay. Moving on, the superintendent's expense report. Did everybody have a chance to look at that? Next is the discussion of policy 5.3, community use of school facilities. David, you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure.
Okay.
So
So I had requested that we put this on the agenda, and the main reason was, as we've discussed this over the last couple of months, I've just done a lot of thinking about how we use the facilities today and what that looks like in the future, and I had gone through and looked at the policy, and our policy has a lot of issues, is what I would say with it. There are contradictions from one paragraph to the next. There are contradictions on whether someone needs to be here or not. It's very lacking in terms of any direction on how do you do this facility. You pay for them at a different price, if they're in a different part of the building. Does it cost more if it's a certain time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The more I thought about it, I started questioning, should we even be using our facilities or allowing the facilities to be used by non-school groups throughout the community. And my thinking on this was that we should be maximizing the use of the school facilities for school functions. So, be it awards nights or team dinners that people want to have. There's other educational activities that should be going on in the enrichment over the summer, or things like that that could be going on these weekend days, things being available. And so the more I thought about it, the more I just kind of leaned towards, I think we should be reserving those facilities strictly for use for school and educational activities, period. I don't see a good way to justify renting it out to community members when there's a possibility we could be using this for more school-time activities, allowing more groups to come. There's athletic groups that could probably use facilities for more time to practice. I'm sure there are other types of enrichment programs that go on. So the robotics event that happened over this past weekend was fantastic. I'd like to keep the facilities reserved for opportunities like that. So that's the main reason that I brought it up.
Anybody else have an opinion or want to add to that? Questions?
So, I mean, looking at the policy, I definitely don't disagree with what David is stating in terms of it. Sometimes it says this and sometimes it says that, so there's not a real clear picture. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, keeping it open to just school usage in terms of, I mean, I know there was an open gym, I think last Sunday or maybe 2 Sundays ago, being able to keep our facilities open for our student use is also something I don't disagree with.
So, principals, how often are the buildings used for outside activities? Or do you ever feel like you turn away a school group that wants, do you ever feel like you can't say, hey, basketball, you can't practice because Boy Scouts is here? Or, hey, girls basketball, or you can't have the gym for this because we have a craft fair there? I mean, do you guys ever feel like we turn away any school-based programs for those kind of events? All three of you?
My only experience is outside of just being in the school is with athletics, when clubs or athletic teams rent other schools' facilities. And my experience is most of it with soccer, both as a coach and as a referee. I've actually shown up to games where, like, a King's Hammer organization has rented a field. But since it had been agreed upon, the school event was happening and the King's Hammer event did not happen. So, there's things in there that will say school events trump outside events, but most of that's been with athletics. I think the only thing we've ever had in middle school is people asking about Boy Scouts. And that usually doesn't conflict with much because they just need a space, and it usually wouldn't conflict with an athletic event. So I don't know about the high school elementary, but
Luke, do you guys feel like?
So it's always been school activities trumped anything outside.
I'm not turning down folks, you know, that are wanting to do school events. Our two big groups is, we'll get Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and then we call it a basketball, but kind of the Walton run a basketball program that's not officially school affiliated, runs out of my school. You know, they use the facilities, but I always coordinate with Kyle Bennett, and like there's a time in October when volleyball is kind of wrapping up where they'll come and use our gym for the middle school teams. There's an understanding between us and the AAU program that any school team that wants to use our gym is always going to take precedent over what they're doing. Even to the moment where it's like just a couple days notice, hey, you need to cancel your practices because they got a school group coming in. We've never had a big issue with it, but you know, being where we are, we don't get a ton of outside groups wanting to come over and use our space necessarily.
Yes, you're probably the most used one, aren't you?
I was just gonna say, I've never approved an outside organization.
Oh, really?
To my knowledge, no. Kyle does a lot of that with all the sports scheduling stuff. I know like the cheerleaders have their, like the breakfast with Santa they did, but it's always, to my knowledge, linked to a school event. I'm not too aware of how much is coming in that would be community-based or not affiliated tightly with a club, group, or organization or team that's already embedded in the school.
I'll jump in. The one thing I do look at when an outside group does ask is what is the benefit to our students, even if it's not a school-sponsored group. Do we have kids that are at my school that are going to benefit from this particular thing? And you know, for me, having the flexibility to do that, I do think is positive for the community.
Does anybody have any other questions for them?
I've had a couple outside groups contact me, but that was mostly during the 2019, 2020, so we just denied them 100% because we're not going to bring them into the building currently. I think it was like a kind of musical group wanted to use it, I guess because other buildings weren't allowing rentals, so they were just trying to find other places, I guess, at the time. Short of that, all the outside organizations.
We could review all work together until the next meeting and kind of review the policy and come to an agreement, so it's not so back and forth.
Oh, I think it definitely needs to be rewritten. We can reach out to Katrina Kinman and she can give us a better start with it, and then we can tweak it.
I spoke to Amanda Hale yesterday at KSBA, who's our policy consultant at KSBA, and shared some of the concerns that they've had, in particular, that our policy, and I will say, and I shared with the board, the same policies from Boone and Kenton counties, and it's not uncommon to see language within the same policy that in some cases will say the principals approve. In other cases, it will say the board approves, and these policies can be fairly vague or ambiguous with regard to who has authority to approve which group coming in. So I do think there needs to be a revision to the policy. I will say that after the work session 2 weeks ago tonight, there was a presentation by a group who was interested in using our facilities, and there wasn't a lot of questions or much discussion after that presentation. So the very next day, that Friday, I invited that group to come in and meet with me, Eric, Adam, Jeremy, Kevin, Jason, and Kyle Bennett. And we met today at 10, and I've already started, you'll get a synopsis of that meeting in your update tomorrow. And two of the things, we talked about a lot of things, but two things that I made clear that really were not negotiable from our standpoint. Number one is, if this or any outside group comes in, number one, it can't cost our district or our taxpayers anything. Can't cost us anything. Number two is our students can't miss out on any opportunities. Our students and any student-related activities or groups have to take precedence. These are first and foremost school buildings. So Again, you'll get a synopsis of that meeting tomorrow in your Friday update. So while I agree this policy needs to be reworked, we need to clarify some language. Just as an example, in my opinion, principals should have the latitude to approve PTA or a basketball banquet. Groups that are directly affiliated with our schools. Principals should have the latitude to make those approvals within certain parameters. But any outside group that wants to use our facilities, that, in my opinion, decision needs to reside with the Board of Education as folks that are elected from our community to govern our school district. So I can absolutely contact KSBA again tomorrow and request some change in language. I'll do my best to get that to you, if not tomorrow, then next Friday at the latest, so that if the board wants that on an agenda for a first reading, we can do that in April, have the second reading in May, to address some of these concerns that have been expressed tonight.
Any other questions or?
I would just say, as you've stated, so that's the beginning of my concern is we don't presently have an issue with any facilities not being available, but if we're talking essentially a long-term tenant who would be using this facility for extended periods of time, we're almost proactively creating a situation where we're going to run into issues where students or groups may want to use facilities, but now we've got this conflict. And that's what gives me pause. I really want to have anything where we have a long-term, I don't think a public school building should become a long-term tenant for any group outside of the school.
Okay, moving on is personnel. You guys, everyone got a chance to take a look at that. Next is other. Dr. Baker.
Board members, we were able to share some really good news. A few weeks ago, we have 2 Golden Apple Award winners this year, and one of them is here with us this evening, Jen Cook at the elementary and Stacy Ross at the middle school. We're both Golden Apple Award winners, so we're very proud of those 2 staff members, and you'll be there's a banquet in April that we will attend, and board members are certainly welcome to attend that with us. If you're interested and you haven't already, just please let Kate know that you would like to attend. And I learned last night the Ed Council did a press release with all of the award winners. Initially, I received an email just with our winners, but in the press release last night, I learned that we have 2 additional folks who received awards. We have 2 students who received scholarships from St. Elizabeth. Anne Marie Hinks and Kylie Lay both won scholarships from St. E, and they'll be awarded that night at the banquet also. So we're very proud of those 2 young ladies and their accomplishments. Just a couple additional things. We began planning this week for a safe driving program at our high school. That will actually occur the week of prom, and that'll be fairly involved. Some of our drama students will be recreating a crash scene. There may even be a helicopter brought in as a part of that recreation for our students. And we're trying to be strategic, doing that the week of prom to stress to our high school students the importance of making good decisions and being responsible. So again, that planning began in earnest this week. I received a call yesterday from someone, and I wasn't able to answer the phone. Called that person back, and the question was, did I have any board members who were interested in testifying before the legislature? You all are aware that there are lots of things going on in Frankfort right now involving public schools. Some of them are very positive, some of them are not. So when I called this person back, they'd already found someone to testify, but if any board members are interested in going down and testifying before the legislature, please let me know. If I'm contacted again, I'll be more than happy to submit your name and go down with you if you're interested in testifying before the legislature on some of these issues. In particular, I'm sure you're all aware that House Bill 9 passed one house and it's currently in the other house. There's lots of gamesmanship going on. The most troubling thing to me is this takes locally generated public tax revenue and transfers that revenue to privately owned for-profit charter schools. I don't know, I don't have strong feelings about parochial schools, charter schools in general, until you start transferring tax revenue, public revenue, to for-profit entities. So again, I know that you're informed by KSBA when those things are going on. There are, I believe, 3 days left before the governor's veto period, and I'm sure that in that time period, there will be a flurry of activity. So again, if any of you are interested in testifying before the legislature, please let me know. Just one other thing this evening, our high school drama club is putting on Footloose, performing Footloose tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday night at the high school in the auditorium at 7. So I believe Mr. Fang was there this evening. Mr. Nash will do either Friday or Saturday, and I'll do the other night. So I will tell Mr. Nash and Mr. Fangman, neither of them have seen the movie Footloose. And I find that to be very disturbing. So that may be required viewing at some point. I'm showing my age a little bit, I guess. I find it hard to believe that somebody hasn't seen the movie Footloose. So again, it's 7 o'clock in the auditorium.
I will say Friday night sold out.
Friday night sold out, okay.
So did Saturday.
Also Saturday,
Okay. I hope you have tickets. If you want to go, I'm sure we can pull some strings and get you.
already got, I have my tickets.
Okay.
I was waiting to see if it rains tomorrow at Dixie, it's a track meet, so.
Well, they don't care about that.
No, I'm not going to sit
Oh,
there.
okay.
If it's not, if it's raining, I'm going here. If it's not raining, I'm going there. Yeah, they don't care, but I do. Okay, moving on, audience of citizens, there were none. Next, we're going to move into recommended board motions. First is the approval of the minutes from February 17, 2022.
Okay.
First by Heather. Discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by David. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the minutes from the March 10th, 2022. First by Stacy. Discussions or questions? Is there a second?
Make it.
Second by David. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next, the approval of the treasurer's report.
Make it.
First by David. Any discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by Stacy. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the order of the treasurer, the bills.
Make it.
First by David. Discussion or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Heather. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next, the approval of the tuition rate and schedule beginning 2022 for the 2023 school year. First by Stacy. Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I only have one question, and I'm sure I probably already know my own answer, but I'm gonna ask anyway. So approving this tonight, if things change, can we revisit this and change the price if we needed to? Or is it approving this, setting this in stone for the next 5 years or 4 years?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, Edgar, I'm sorry. That's kind of a legal question that I don't have an answer for. It's within the board's latitude. If you just wanted to make this for 1 year instead of multiple years, you could do that. And just adopt a tuition rate for the 22-23 school year.
That's the only thing
Well, what were
I
your
thought of
concerns?
sitting here thinking of.
What are your concerns?
Like if we needed to raise it more, or we needed,
Okay. Can we not amend it? Can we not?
I don't know why you could, I would just think you would want to do whatever you were going to do before that, whatever
Right.
year started. So
Right.
that we could get word out to the families and let them know.
Oh, absolutely. You need to give it time. It wouldn't be something sprung on somebody.
yeah, I just didn't want this to tie our hands and say that we can't do anything for the next 4 years.
If that's a concern that other board members share, my recommendation would be that we just adopt a rate for the 22-23 school year, and we can advertise that starting tomorrow to our out-of-district families. And if you want to, we can just approve tuition rates 1 year in advance and not do 3 or 4 years in advance. That way you're not paying it with it.
Didn't we talk about doing it, like, if we voted this through tonight with the 4 years out there, like, kind of grandfathering that family, those families in?
We talked about that, but then we nixed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mentioned it, but I don't think it was ever like decided that we were gonna do that.
No, yeah, I knew, I'm not saying, I'm just saying there was an option
Yeah.
to where then if somebody new came in, it could be a different rate. I kind of like the fact that they know ahead of time what it's gonna look like, but I see what you're saying, if we needed to amend it.
I think even if you set it for like 2 years at a time, like we do a calendar, like it gives families a chance to plan, and then, so like if you approve 23 and 24, next year you could throw on, the 25 year, kind of like you do the calendar, so they at least know the upcoming year and the year after. And kind of do it on a rolling, we've never done that before this.
I don't believe there's anything legally that would stop us from changing it year after year, even though we've approved. It's just like the calendar or, things happen. I would be more in favor of having a fixed schedule, we would low, and then we could change it next year, and if push comes to shove, we would need to.
And we could even put like, this box that has the numbers, the payment dates, goes on the website, we can even put a, subject to change pending board approval, underneath them.
I think that's good. Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I think that's a great
That works
idea.
for me.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You said first.
I'll make it.
You were, Stacy was first, Heather second. Okay. Second by Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is approval of the salary schedule. Is there a first? Is there a first to discuss?
I'll first to discuss.
Okay. First by Heather.
And I know we got an email that stated, I haven't received any questions. It's not that I have questions about, I don't understand. I understand these papers that we received. My concern is sustaining. So we have this project going on, which is a ton of money. We have this adding on to it. It goes back to Kevin Flynn's famous car that he always talked about, take your car to the shop and they want to fix this, and they call you 2 weeks later, and now they want to fix this, and 2 weeks later you have this added on, and then when you get your bill, you're kind of in shock because you didn't realize you just spent $1,500 fixing this car that you could have sold. So that is my concern. So being able to sustain this, and then we get to the point where we can't sustain it, which I think we will get there. At that point, what are we gonna do? Cutting jobs, nobody wants to do that. So I don't know if it's a matter of going through here and seeing if there's anything we can tweak. Maybe there's things in here that we have and maybe it hasn't been used, maybe taking this away. That's just my concern is sustaining and not in 2 years doing a 4% tax increase because we can't sustain this any longer with everything going on.
I have a similar concern, so this is one that I had a really hard time with mulling this over, what could we do with this? I also feel that we're on the precipice of this being unsustainable, just with all of the other ancillary spending. And when I look at, we've got the request for the adjustments to the salary schedule, and we also, on the other hand, have a request for multiple new positions that we need to staff. And the costs for them are, I'll say equivalent, they're not exactly the same, but they're on par. And so for me, in my mind, I keep thinking about this, this is coming down to a choice of, if I have to make a decision, is this accepting this new salary schedule does that mean that we won't be able to hire the new positions that we need, or the counselors that we need? And I'm really struggling to be able to balance the budget myself in terms of how can I do this? And it's for me, it's almost an untenable situation that we're faced with here. And we've also got, as Heather had stated, this new project, and we'll have to staff that facility as well. And so when I look at it, I think not that this is something that may be unsustainable. It's a matter of when will this become unsustainable? Will it become unsustainable in a year, in 2 years? And it's tough because I know that the inflation is rising exponentially. The cost of living is linear, and so those things are already up. So people already lost money. So this is a really, really difficult one for me. But that's where I'm at as well. Is I don't know what the decision would be if we had to decide between this new policy and the new position, which one should we choose? And I don't know the answer to that. I've mulled it over for a long time now.
I was interested to add with, I guess, you know, this happens annually, so this isn't something new. And I get, like, you know, you approach a point. Right now we're riding, you know, kind of a wave of growth, again, which we've had kind of on and off over the last 30 years. In the, like, mid-2000, like, I'll say 2008 to 2012, we were a little bit flat. When the economy get back up, we kind of took off. So our revenues will go up from that. Also with that, we talked about, you know, that comes additional positions, right? Like, you know, more kids, we have more. We're hiring another 4th grade teacher, hopefully, to deal with that growth. These are discussed, you know, you could do that every single year we've ever approved or not approved, and a lot of years we didn't approve any adjustments to the salary schedule. And we got into a situation where we were so far behind on there. We had to take a kind of a big swing, you know, for a home run last year, and we did that to kind of get back to the middle instead of being kind of one of the lowest in the region as far as certified salaries go. So I do understand the concern. A lot of the additional positions we talked about, counselors, we have extra money to pay for the next 2 years. We've also talked about, you know, that funding cliff is sharp, right? And so I do see a scenario in which in 2 years, depending on what happens, maybe you wouldn't be able to do anything for salary schedules because you're dealing with positions that kind of already exist and bringing them back into the general fund. That's something, you know, there are a lot of things that will change between now and then, including the state budget. You know, with funding, there's even some thought of funding ADM, average daily membership, instead of attendance, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 4% of $6 million a year is a lot of money. You know, we can help with stuff like that. I'm sure they'll figure out a way on the back end to, you know, kind of screw us out of whatever. And we'll essentially be the same thing we've already got now. I've been around long enough to know how that works. But, so yeah, I don't disagree. I think, you know, at some point, you do. I think, you know, we kind of live in a year-to-year situation, right, with school funding and not knowing what taxes you on. In addition to student growth, we also have tremendous property value growth, and with that comes additional revenue. But again, the state always figures out a way to get it back out of you too. We lose some seat money because of that. So it's not a net 100% gain of that. So the crystal ball that into the future, I think in 2 years, when that ESSER money runs out on any additional positions, we could be looking at, you know, having to make some harder choices then. As it stands right now, if we want to stick to that's just kind of what my task was to try to, you know, keep what we want to stay up with the other districts according to the strategic plan, and try to stay at least at the median level. And I don't know what all the other districts are going to do. I do know if we don't do anything, we will lose ground with relation to that. And with that comes some staff turnover, morale, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm certainly open to suggestions on
Kevin,
whatever.
Can you talk a little bit about, I think one of the big issues here is sustainability of revenue. Can you talk about the sustainability of our property tax revenue and SEEK? For example, since you've been finance officer, has the revenue this district receives from property taxes, has that revenue ever gone down?
That revenue's not ever gone down just because there's always been some building, right? Even when the economy was bad, like I'll say 08, 09, there was still enough building going on that it went up a little bit. The difference was then it didn't, it wasn't enough to, number one, affect our tax rate, where we had lower electric this past year. And it wasn't enough to drive down seats significantly because we weren't getting, quote, richer per student, which is how seat works. So there are pros and cons to high growth or steady growth or low growth. Those are just a lot of, and I agree, a lot of factors that we don't have control of. The only one that we do have control of is number of positions and tax rate. And that's the only two real weapons that we have to combat any of those things, should we run into where it's unsustainable. So I will say this, I get long term, there are some questions out there into the ESSER funding with the additional positions that we're talking about. In the short to medium term, I'll just put it this way, I wouldn't have presented this if I didn't feel comfortable that we could handle this for the next couple of years. Beyond that, we're always one legislative session away from getting knocked off the rails. Or the economy crashes and nobody can kind of forecast that. And I don't know, maybe you may have been around long enough that we had, where we got mid-year cuts like in February. Well, there's nothing you can do. You just lost money. You can't cut staff in February. They cut contracts. Things like that can always happen. But if we plan for the worst and kind of hold off on kind of continuing to try to at least tread water, I think we'll lose ground and we'll be back in a situation again like we were last year where we had to take a big swing. Do a $500,000 raise at a time instead of kind of, getting singles and advancing the runner.
Let me ask you this, if the board doesn't feel comfortable with what's been proposed, we can make adjustments and bring this back to you.
Yeah.
We can bring this back to you next month for your consideration, but I would just request some direction. Do we want to look at, we proposed a 1.5% for all certified staff. Do we want to look at a 1% instead, or a 0.5%? Do we want to, I'm requesting some direction.
Personally, I think it's deserved. These increases, they're deserved, without a doubt. However, trying to be fiscally responsible at the same time. So can we see both? Can we see what it would look like at 1%? Can we see what it looks like? What was your?
1.5.
1.5.
Do that for us?
Yeah, I can do that. If we reduce it 0.5%, you're looking at, I'll say maybe $50,000 worth of savings on certified, classified, that we cut in half, so that'd be another $40,000 worth of save.
And then I know.
So if we want 1% across the board, ballpark, off the top of my head.
What was the dollar amount?
So I think if we went 1% across the board, we'd probably save, in the $80,000 to $90,000 range off of that. $272,000 number that was on the email that I sent with the additional cost to the general fund.
Another thing that I would suggest is the ability to break these into groups. Because I know there have been a lot of questions about, like the coaching positions, for instance, and I know there's there's some disagreements on those individually, so I think voting on those separately, the staff salary scale versus the certified salary scale.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. We've never done that before, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be done.
That's kind of what I'm struggling with. I think it needs to be separate.
Yeah, it does make it difficult because the impacts are different, and I think there's instances where people have brought things up in previous meetings that the percentage may have been here, and someone else said, I think for that position, the percentage should be here, and I don't know that I wouldn't want to lump everything together and then that be the reason that the entire thing doesn't pass because someone may have particular misgiving about a certain portion of that. I think that would give us time as well in the interim between now and the next meeting to provide input that this is what I have concerns with A, B, C, D, E to try to build something that's more amenable to everyone. I don't know how to feel about that.
So each one of like the 5 sections, you want to have that as a separate approval item?
Yeah, I personally would like to see them all broken apart, and then I would like to, at the working meeting, be able to work on like each section. So, like David said, there are some sticking points in here for me that I would not vote for, because there's a couple things in here that I don't agree with, and unfortunately that affects everyone. So if it's broken out, then this group doesn't affect this group, or maybe, like you said, we can talk and we can come to an agreement on why this isn't working for this, this group, and then still be able to pass this group, even though it's a particular group still, because we've adjusted some of the concerns. I think everybody here had concerns last time. They were all a little bit different, but at the same time, they were the same. And then you have the counseling part of it, which to me is extremely important, and I think that should be top of our priority list, is seeking some more counselors for our kids. So personally, I would like to see them broke apart, and then I would like to have a true working session to where you bring us what you broke apart and bring us the motion or whatever, and then we can still go through and work through it. And you explain, well, this is why it has to be this way. And then we can say, well, this is what we don't like, this piece, and then we kind of go from there. Does that make sense?
So when you say sections, you're talking about the individual pigs, like certified separate, classified separate, not like you want to see transportation separate, food service
It's
separate.
like certified, classified.
Okay.
Yeah. Sports, extracurricular.
Yeah, my only suggestion would be, our next meeting is April the 28th, I believe. And then after that, we have 2 meetings in May. We have to approve the tentative budget by the end of May. That's law, I guess. And if we get into that April meeting and we have things that don't pass or things that we still want to talk about, it's going to be very difficult to put together a cohesive, accurate budget for May. If we don't have time. So my suggestion would be, if we want to look at that, we want to have a kind of a back and forth conversation about it, I think we need to schedule a separate meeting, or a working meeting, or maybe more than one, to go through those things.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't have a working meeting next month, so I think we need to.
But with spring break in that week, so we might need to alter
I mean, it'll be next week.
next week or third week, or whatever, that's just spring break. As I say,
Yeah, I mean, it is what, this is the starting document here, so
Right.
whatever changes we're gonna make, I think, need to go. If you want me to wholesale change that, I just need direction on that, because I'm pointing towards the strategic plan, we're talking about trying to stay at, medium levels, and this is what it takes to do that, I believe. But yeah, if we wanna look at changing certain pieces, I think we can do that, but I think this is as good of a starting document as we're gonna get.
well, and I don't disagree with what you're saying as far as saying to the strategic budget, but to Heather's point, we're building a new school, our kids are in need of counselors, like there's other things I feel like need to take precedence. They're getting step increases, we caught up those, we did the 1%, the 2%, then last year. So we're there, and I agree, I don't want to fall behind either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, something has to give. And I feel like maybe we do what we did several years ago and do the one-time stipend. Maybe we do that. Maybe there's just options. And I feel like with the counselors as well, I mean, that's gonna take a lot off the teachers' plates as well, too. I mean, you've got, they're double duty on a lot of that stuff. So I'm not saying that's what I think needs to happen. I would just like to see all the different pieces individually so that we can make a combined effort decision.
So,
So I hate to see it all fail because
if we're
this
having
here
work-
and that there.
working meeting, what you're saying, is you wanna have kind of all the proposed positions and the thing on there to look at the same time.
I would like to.
Yeah.
I would, because I think, as I said, for me, right now, as I look at everything laying here, I see it as a decision for me. Like, I either have to do the salary schedule as is, or I have to staff these positions. And I can't wrap my mind around both as they're written today. I think another thing for me, I know you're working on it, and I really appreciate the ESSER funds, kind of like an accounting thing, because it's kind of found money that's come into everybody's district, and there's been so many waves of it. I've personally lost track of how much we actually have and how much we've actually spent. Because it's exactly so. You know, I couldn't tell you the number of meetings or conversations where someone has said, "Oh yeah, we've got ESSER funds that can take care of that." And when I think about all the times I've heard, we'll use ESSER funds for that, and then the amount of spending that we've either done or have planned, they don't add up in my head, and I'm worried that we've got this much ESSER funds and we booked this much in terms of spending. I know this was, again, like, this is something that we earmarked a very large amount of ESSER funds for. I don't know if we still have planned that, or if some of those funds have been eaten up by other things like positions, so that's again, just something I need information about.
Sure. Yeah, and to your point, that project, we were, at the time that we had that discussion, we were kind of out of things to spend money on, right? Like,
Yep.
how much, like, can you add, because you gotta get rid of it in 2 years. And kind of use that as a placeholder to say, okay, whatever we got left, we'll throw into this. Well, there are some additional wrinkles with, was it the Davis-Bacon Wage Act, where you have to pay prevailing wage if you use any, like, one federal dollar, it affects the whole project. And we got to the point where it looks like, you know, spending, let's say, $500,000 on a project, you know, it's quote free money. If it costs you $1 million, it doesn't make sense to do. So we kind of shifted that focus around. So yeah, I'll put that together and get that, and maybe something to talk about that at work meeting as well.
So we're, just to be sure, we're talking about 3 things. ESSER funding, how much we receive in each way, what we spend it on. We're talking about proposed additional positions for next year, and we're talking about salaries broken out, certified, classified, so on and so forth. Okay.
The only other thing I'd add to that is just my last point about we earmarked a ton of money for this, and it sounds like that money's not going to necessarily all be used for this, so that then means that this project has become more expensive potentially, but I don't know.
We anticipated having some revenue, you know, to put towards that, but yeah, that probably, it just doesn't make sense to spend money that's gonna cost, you know.
Yep.
You're gonna lose.
I agree.
So, yeah.
That's just another expense that you have to balance between the staffing, salary, and now this project.
Is there a second? Motion dies due to lack of second. Next is the approval of the 2023-2024 calendar.
I'll make it.
First by David. Discussions?
So, only thing I was curious about is I saw early release days are back. I was just curious what was the reasoning behind bringing it back. I know we took them away. Unless I read the calendar.
I'll make my way during the coding here.
Wheels it around and everything.
I'll just stand up here and answer questions. I really don't have a report of any kind, but just to be clear, there are 2 choices in here for you. We're going to have to vote on one of them. So, yes, we got our calendar committee back together here in the last month, and we've kind of gone through a few versions of this, and so we're back to inserting just 2 Both of these options have two early release days on them. I don't know if you can, is that one of our attachments? Both are strategically placed. One is for prom day, and then the other is the end of the school year there, where we have had some early release days in the past. Our time and our days still work out to the legal amount that we're supposed to be at, so we can afford to do that. In talking with the committee, several of those members are here tonight. We didn't think that was going to impose too badly on the school year or events at school or flow of kids and whatnot. So yes, they are back, but not quite as many as we.
Okay, so I have a couple. Okay. So first, I'm glad to see that we're not starting on a Monday, either one of these, because I think that's rough. Staff, students, parents, I think it's a long week, so I'm glad to see that. So a couple things to me. So in A, and again, just explain these to me because I don't understand it, why. So in on draft A, why would we take a random day on the 29th of September when we have fall break, just a week behind that?
Okay.
It says teacher planning, I understand that, but like if you're gonna do it, why wouldn't you do it like the 6th? Tack it on, like just a random day and then you're ready to go off, go on a break.
That was a proposed day for data disaggregation for our K-Prep stuff that kind of comes out at about that time of the year. And there was some discussion about it being that close to a break that it might, for lack of better words, you might not have as much enthusiasm from staff about being there and being productive. So we set it off the break just a bit to accomplish that goal. I'm sure our staff would give it regardless, but there might be some other things on people's minds the day before a week-long break.
And I think another big difference between A and B, Megan, is A, you get the full 2 weeks at Christmas time.
Yes, I saw that. And spring break, you get the +1 on A. You get the Friday plus the spring break. But then on B, why are we going the 18th and 19th of December, starting Christmas break on the 20th, even though we basically get 2 weeks, but we're not coming back until the 3rd? Like, what was the reason behind that?
Well, unfortunately, on that second option, where we start and end school, actually on both options, where we start and end school, there are just not enough days to wiggle in there. With some of our planned teacher planning days where we wanted to kind of have a few throughout the year instead of having them all right up front. That was a need, and so unfortunately, on that option 2, there was just not a great way to work that thing without going past Memorial Day or starting school earlier than it's starting. So there was also a big call for us to start either midweek or kind of towards the end of the week, as you pointed out, we'll start on Monday. So and we have to have that 170 days in there. Trust me, we beat my brains out trying to figure out a way to not do that. But
I just worry about attendance being low on that Monday and Tuesday.
It's
In
possible.
high school, you can hold exam, there's ways around it, but.
We have done that. I don't know if you remember or not. We've had years where we've done that before, and I don't recall standing here today. I couldn't recall what kind of attendance we had when we did have that before, but we have had it. There's some precedent for that. elementary school, just speaking from experience, I mean, that's a magical time of the year. Everybody wants to be at school for all the things you're doing. As you pointed out, high school and middle school, they can plan things kind of strategically there to try to attract people. But you are correct, you might have a bit of a drop off there. But honestly, to get to the threshold of that 170-day thing, and still accomplish a lot of the other things we were trying to do, that particular version had to kind of work out better. If you look at the other one, at option 1 there, where you have the full, solid 2-week Christmas break, and then we have a holiday on Monday, and then we're back in school on Tuesday. On that one, we actually start, let's see, we actually start school almost a week earlier with kids. So that allows us a little bit more play to do some things with Christmas break. But, certainly, I guess I should have said this up front. Certainly, this is not something that has to be approved tonight, unless you like one of these two. This is still 2 years away. Obviously, we are under no timeline to state or law to approve this. This is just sort of something we're trying to do now is get these things taken care of. Or people planning, as Kevin pointed out.
I remember I had another question. So on A, I don't know which one she's on, or the first one. We're off twice in March. We're off the 15th, and then we turn around the 29th. It says teacher planning day for one. So why not a Friday, Monday, or Thursday, Friday? What was that about?
We could do that. The 29th, that particular year is Good Friday.
On the 12th?
On the 29th.
29th, no. Okay.
The 15th was a work day that we placed in there for RTI. You know, that's a time of the year when it might make sense to have an RTI meeting in there, or just a work day to go through some test analysis, test score analysis, that kind of thing. Don't think we don't have any tests at that time, going on at that time of the year. But that's
We might do our admin training.
Do what?
Our test administration training.
We do test administration, code training. There's a myriad of things you could do at that time, but certainly tackling the two together, you could do that. The difference between two, also I'll point this out, the difference between teacher planning day and PD day, so that's the brown and the orange color you see, is PD time can kind of be accomplished a lot of different ways at a lot of different times. As long as you get your 30 hours in, sometimes that's all done before school even starts. As long as teachers have been able to do that, those PD days can be put at about anywhere. The work days are a little different. Those are days we've scheduled and people actually do have to report. Now, certainly there might be a PD initiative going on where it would require people to be there, but that's not always the case.
Anybody else have any other questions? Or?
No, I mean, out of the two, I like A the best, but I'm always in for a long weekend. I know stays together.
I don't think, that's what I thought too. I'm like, well, because then we turn around again, and now you give us Friday and then spring break. I'm like, that's a lot of, it's like every other week, we're there, we're not, we're there, we're not, we're there, we're not, we're not, we're there. I just thought that was a lot. And that's an early release in April.
So,
That's just a lot.
would you suggest tacking the 15 on to like the 28th? Put the work day where the 28th.
I would think take the 29th back to the 14th or the 18th, because
I
it's
think
so
18th.
close. it's so close to spring break and you're already giving them an extra. That's why I thought Friday, the 12th was Good Friday. I haven't looked ahead to when Easter was, but typically we do that. If it is Good Friday with our spring break, we would
We
tack it on.
We would do that normally, but.
So I didn't realize the 29th was, but that's so close.
Nearly 2 months there where, usually we're looking for that spring break to be kind of in a spot that we don't have to come back and stare down 2 months of school.
I think spring break's in a fine place. That doesn't, it's just March that I'm like, so I'm like.
The only thing is the 29th is, keep in mind, that's Good Friday. I don't know of a year we haven't honored that as at least a PE day in the past. I don't know how strongly people feel about that being a day out of school, and I know, that's not, certainly not something you have to do, but I don't think we've ever not had that day off. So, and we could certainly take that back and rework that.
I mean, does anybody else see what I'm saying? It's like, we're there on the 8th, we're gone on the 15th, we're there on the 22nd, we're gone on the 29th, we're there on the 5th, we're gone on the 12th, we're gone on the 18th, we're going out early on the 26th. I just feel like,
If you look at draft 2, option 2, or B on yours, it's just
We're going
that,
to
you just have the 1 day in March, and then you have a fairly traditional looking April.
and we're starting later, let's put that.
You do start a little later, which isn't the end of the world, really. We have a few work days there at the beginning of the school year for teachers to come back and spend some quality time in the building, get things ready, which was kind of our model here this year, and it will be again next year. Recall, we've got some teacher work days in there. So, but it's time well spent, I feel. As a principal, I always hated seeing people coming in weeks beforehand and not getting paid a dime to do all that. You do, you have to do it. So this is, that option 2 gives you a way to accomplish giving them something.
So I know this is a committee of all schools and teacher here, but we've got 3 or 4 teachers in here now. What do you all think about that March, April, and draft day, the there, not there, not there? Yeah, I feel like the kids are gonna be wild. That's my opinion. I just remember how I was a substitute. You lose control, then you gotta refocus them, and then you lose it again. Ryan?
I would agree with
Jen? An opinion?
that. But I would also say it's probably worse for elementary and middle school.
I heard a lot of good feedback that we started later. That was really received well. Well, I heard.
I would agree too. I like to have a longer time in the summer. That's when the weather's nice and that's when you want to be outside and doing things with your family. Personally, I like
And it's less interruptions.
I like the one with the 1 day off in March personally, but that's my opinion.
And that March day, that's a PD. That's Good Friday.
Okay, yes.
So we lose teacher planning day.
Yeah, in that.
But is there somewhere?
Well, it's just put at the beginning of the school
The
year.
big,
Right
okay.
before
Oh, okay, I
the
see it.
school
Okay.
starts.
Rob, can you remind me which ones require the teachers to physically be in the building, brown or orange?
That's the ground.
So the calendar where we come back later, the teachers are forced in here on the 15th. It's all crammed in together.
Correct. They would be, the teachers would be here, yes. Kids would not start until the 23rd on option 2, and the 17th on option.
So that gives them 3 days in the beginning, and then a day in September, and a day in January. For planning. When you print black and white, you lose all the color.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I printed them on my own when I was, yeah, no, it's not from you guys, I just printed them and saved it. But now I'm struggling.
think about the Christmas time with teachers? Do you think that 2 weeks is much time away? December?
No.
And I know there's a lot of holiday parties and things.
Getting off for Christmas break on December 15th is, I mean, that's almost crazy early in terms of, you know, just thinking of like holiday travels and preparations. You're gonna lose more kids on the back end of that on the 2nd than you will on the 15th. And I will take responsibility. Some of these ideas were generated here. I strategically tried to, at least from a high school standpoint, getting a day in March to look at ACT data. That is so critical for us we don't have like common planning like the middle school or the elementary does. For us to get our teachers together, it's either that late start Wednesday or it's not.
Okay, so and so that's why I ask these questions, because I know that some of these things affect you guys. Like, I know before, trying to end in December so that classes were done was all about, starting earlier is about high school, for the college classes and stuff. But what about if we took away one of the start days, the teacher planning days at the beginning, the 15th, and stick it on the 28th or?
And we are at the mercy of ACT at that point. So like ACT scores started showing up in the kids' accounts today.
Right.
And we are at the mercy of ACT and KDE to allow us to access that material. So, I mean, ideally, this is what we really struggled with is the placement of spring break, that day-to-day to do like, let's do some critical data breakdown right before spring break. You know, that's just not a good use of your time. We don't know, because ACT and also too, they changed their system. This will be the first year they've implemented an online portal for us to access the ACT scores. So we don't really know what the timeline of that is. I know Mrs. Hester checked today. We could not see ACT scores today, even though the kids could.
That's what March 24th.
From the middle school perspective, we kind of have the opposite thing. We don't have departments that can, it's hard to align the departments at times. And so we're doing a lot of work this coming year on the planning days with some alignment things and refinement that always need to be done during the year. So that's why I kind of like 2 or 3 planning days during the year. Because like this coming school year, we have like 7 planning days before school. So it's all front loaded again. So like 3 or 4 is good, and then we have 2, I would prefer 3 throughout the year because we can do some vertical alignment. We can even coordinate in some of our RTI meetings where we're getting a few subs for a whole day to coordinate those. We can do those on some of the planning days as well. So I know that's more like long weekends for kids and stuff, but.
So on the board, just a quick, it's not a vote, what A or B to where then they could maybe look at it and modify? Maybe leaning towards one or the other to know what they could go look at?
That might be, I would like to.
I'm fine with both calendars as is.
I mean, A just had my attention, most of the reason, you know, starting a little bit earlier. But if the board, as a group, wants to look at B, I'm totally good with that too.
I was leaning towards B, but you make that only leaves 2 teacher planning days included in the calendar. Could we
So I was wondering if you
could we get one more somewhere in there?
Down.
So
We have 2 in the
kind of
front.
work off of D and work off of B, but try to figure out try to put one of those teacher days in the calendar, there, instead of the 15th, 16th, or 17th.
Yeah, it's like take one of those away and put it somewhere.
Well, what that's going to do is it will shrink one of the other breaks.
You take away, instead of ending the 23rd, we probably would. The 24th, we calculate, so 27 possibly.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the things that we kept running into as we started moving these little chips around is coming back on that. I believe
What's
that's
the
a holiday
19th of
weekend.
February, what's that? I mean, I know what it is there, but like, what's significant about that day?
That's a federal holiday.
Yeah, we never take, we're all, I mean, usually it's a snow, well, it's a little more SNTI.
Nowadays, yeah. you
I'm
don't-
gonna say, I can't remember her.
Yeah, so you still can't take that day off. It's too bad. Yeah, you'd be, if you put another workday in there, let's just say for fun, you put it in March, your final day of school is now on 28th.
That was the issue, you have a holiday weekend, and then you'd expect kids to come back for one day after that.
Yeah, that's not.
You're either putting stuff on the front, on the back, or you're shrinking a break. That's about your only option. And the breaks we've got are so tried and true.
I don't think they're-
Bad shape.
I just hate that March. That's my sticking point on that.
So on the first option there, we actually do have, we have 171 student days instead of 170. Kind of running into the same issue if you want that Christmas break to kind of look like it looks, spring break, fall break. I mean, I could take a look at both and just one more time and just see if there's anything else I can do with it to manipulate things around a little bit.
I mean, I value the teacher planning days. I think they're important for data, and each one of them have their own reasons, whether it's ACT or this or that, but I mean, that March looks rough.
The other thing I guess I should have said also earlier is those colored things on the side, the key there on the side, the 4 holidays, the 5 PD days, open and close, all have to be kept. There's no deviating from that. The planning days and the student instruction days do not have to be, the student instruction days have to be at least 170. Teacher planning days can be whatever, but ultimately our teacher contract is 186 days. So all of that mushed together has to be 186. So,
You've never not had a Good Friday?
I can't think of a time.
Y'all can, maybe the peanut gallery can speak to that, but I don't think we have ever not had.
I can't remember it as long as I've been here, but I don't really know why or where, I mean, I do know why it was wrong, but I don't know why. I mean, I get like the Catholic holidays, so the more religious school, but I don't know. I don't know why.
It is one we've traditionally had, but like I said, I don't know if that is something that was gonna ruffle too many feathers too more than it is or not.
Is it Easter?
Must be 31st.
Yeah, 31st. I don't know, like, I have a video, but it's spring break down here.
All right.
So it might be the better option once we want to go and do coming back after Memorial Day, working day.
No, that's not good.
And who wants to do that?
No, that's not good.
Nothing good happens at school like Memorial Day.
No. They already checked out. They checked out at spring break. Oh.
We could, I mean, if we're a little split on this, we can certainly table it and try to next month.
Could you have it ready by the working meeting, and when we decide when that is?
Yeah, maybe next week.
We don't know yet.
Week after. Yeah, I mean, I can put some more thought into it and see if there's like one more
Tweak.
on this.
Okay. Is everybody okay with
I
that?
am, because it helps us understand some of why they were chosen.
Yeah.
I would go to
I will say our committee, on my final kind of like poll of the committee on their directors, it was more of us. We didn't have one counter for the other.
Yeah, I like some of A and I like some B. Okay. Do you mind to look at that one more time and then as soon as we figure out our working date tomorrow or whatever, we'll get back to you? Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So is there a second? So motion dies due to lack of a second. Next is the approval of the graduation date, Friday, May 20th, 2022.
I'll make it.
Quick by David, discussion or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Heather, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is the approval of the schematic design documents for the Walton Brewing Intermediate School. Is there a first? First by Heather, discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Stacy, all in favor? 3, all opposed?
Aye.
1, motion passes 3-1. Next is the approval of the owner-architect agreement B101-2007 with GRW Engineers Incorporated for new wastewater treatment at the Walton Intermediate School. Is there a first?
I need to understand it a little bit better.
So this is the agreement that brings GRW engineers on board to design the wastewater treatment plant, which is what was in yellow on the back part of the hill. So it'll be much like the one you have on Porter Road behind the elementary school. We'll process that and then put out the clean effluent in the woods. It is a several-month process. We've been kind of charting this. I mean, there's some very early reconnaissance. We had to have a topographical survey made for them, and I've been kind of just helping manage them. It's not really what I do, but the treatment plant is a very specialized engineering component. So I've been helping them get the topographical survey. They had an environmental survey completed, and apparently you can't get the actual permit until a specific design is submitted. So it's not like just get a rough permit. It's almost like submitting for a building permit. They have to have a specific design. We've got a lot of the flow data and all the preliminary stuff from our engineers. We've given them all everything they need, and they had a couple months prepared to actually physically design the detailed specifics, and then it goes off to the state of Kentucky for the final review of the specifics. They have to get pretty deep in the woods on the design side of it. We actually talked to the Department of Ed on, this is a pretty unusual situation doing a treatment plant. We don't do many of them. So this is the guidance that they gave us during this. The department was that they have their own architect engineer agreement with you for this design. So I didn't know if they really needed a separate agreement that would be running through you, because you hire geotechnical engineers and a lot of other kind of things that you do, kind of professional services in the BG, but this is the direction that they gave us, is to actually do a separate agreement, separate set of documents. GRW will then have design documents that will have to be submitted to the department, and they might have to be approved by you, which I believe they will, much like the other pieces, but that is what it is. And we might even have to have them come explain the physical design and the plant size and all the pieces.
It was included in your original BG one as well, so this isn't like a separate thing that's going to be on top of that original. We included all the costs and everything in there initially. They're just making us do a separate document for everything at this point.
Is there a first? Any other questions for Emmett before he walks away?
Just sit there.
You have to get the podium to talk.
Well, did you ask me a question?
No, I was asking them if they wanted any questions before you left, but that's what you're
Get
doing.
back up.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by Heather, all in favor? 3, all opposed? 1, motion passes 3-1. Next is the approval for the 2022-2023 student accident insurance policy, Plan 4, scheduled benefit coverage, and catastrophic coverage for all students.
I'll make it.
First by David, discussions or questions? Is there a second? Second by Stacy, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Next is approval of field trips.
I'll make it.
First by Heather, discussions or questions? Is there a second?
I'll make it.
Second by David, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next is adjournment. First by Heather, is there a second? Stacy, all in favor? 4-0, motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:03. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us.